They say that behind every great man there is a woman rolling her eyes at his antics. Napoleon was your typical man, and he sure as hell didn't have a woman rolling her eyes at him. No. He had two women who loved him with all their hearts, and one of them was not even human. Hello, my name is Orth, and today let's find out about Napoleon's two loves, one real and one imaginary, in Napoleon and Josephine love. In 1773, in the city of Ajaccio, in the island of Corsica, a boy was born. This boy would grow up to be one of the most influential figures in world history, Napoleon. But in this time period, Corsica was under the rule of the Dutch Republic, but the locals hated Dutch influence and wanted independence from them. Napoleon's father, Carlo, was a lawyer and judge, and he wished for his son to follow in his footsteps. However, young Napoleon had other plans. He had fallen in love with a Dutch woman named Maria, who worked as a servant in his family home. The couple had a forbidden romance and got married against the wishes of Napoleon's father. To make things worse, Maria soon became pregnant. She gave birth to a baby girl, but sadly passed away shortly after. Little Napoleon took care of his newborn sister as best as he could, but his father found out about it and banished him from the house. Napoleon then joined the French military, hoping to make a name for himself and win back his father's respect. Meanwhile, in 1778, a beautiful 14-year-old girl named Josephine de Beauharnais was married off to Alexander de Beauharnais. The marriage was a good match for both families. Everyone was happy. However, fate had other plans. During the French Revolution, Alexander was sent to the guillotine for his political beliefs. Poor Josephine, now a young widow, had to take care of herself and her two children all alone. Life was hard, but she never lost hope. Then in 1796, Napoleon came into her life like a breath of fresh air. They met through mutual friends, and it was love at first sight. Well, maybe not for Napoleon. See, when Napoleon first saw Josephine, he was smitten with her beauty and charm, but he was also intimidated by her social status. You see, Josephine was from one of the oldest and most respected noble families in France, while Napoleon was just a lowly artillery officer. But Napoleon was persistent, and soon enough Josephine started seeing him as more than just a friend. Meanwhile, Josephine was also attracted to Napoleon. She was taken aback by his intelligence and ambition, but she was also aware of the difference in their social status. Still, she couldn't help but be drawn to him. So the two began a secret affair, meeting in secret and exchanging passionate letters when they were apart. It was a whirlwind romance, but it was also a dangerous one. If anyone found out about their affair, both of them could be ruined. But neither of them cared. They were in love and willing to risk it all. Soon enough, their secret was out. Napoleon had been promoted to general and was set to lead the French army in a campaign against Austria. Before he left, he went to see Josephine one last time. He told her that he loved her and would never forget her. Then he left for the battlefield, leaving Josephine behind with nothing but a broken heart. Meanwhile, Napoleon's campaign was going well. He won several important battles and was being celebrated as a hero throughout France. But he was far from happy. He missed Josephine terribly and couldn't wait to return to her side. Then came the coup d'etat. Napoleon defeated the Austrians and returned to Paris a hero. He wasted no time in finding Josephine and declaring his undying love for her once again. She was, of course, flattered by all the attention, but she was still married. What was she supposed to do? Well, she did what any sensible woman would do. She got a divorce so she could marry the man of her dreams. Soon after, Napoleon and Josephine were married, and everyone in France was invited to celebrate. The wedding was a lavish affair with all the trimmings. There were 7 bridesmaids, 7 groomsmen, 2 flower girls, and 4 pages. The bride wore a gown of white satin and orange blossom, and the groom looked dashing in a uniform of blue and gold. After the ceremony, there was a reception in the palace of where the newlyweds danced the night away with their friends and family, and they lived happily ever after. Well, not exactly. See, the honeymoon was over soon enough, and Napoleon was back to his old habits. He was ambitious, power-hungry, and always seemed to be on the verge of a nervous breakdown. Josephine tried her best to be a good supportive wife, but she was also aware that their marriage was a political one. Napoleon needed her social connections to advance his career, and she needed him to protect her family's interests. Also, it wasn't a secret that Napoleon had a wandering eye. He had affairs with many women during his marriage to Josephine, but she turned a blind eye to it. After all, she had her own secrets as well. Despite all their problems, Napoleon and Josephine stayed together for 14 years. They had 2 children together, a boy and a girl, and they also adopted Josephine's children from her first marriage. Together, They formed a close-knit family unit, and Napoleon was a devoted father. He was known to be strict and demanding, but he also had a soft spot for his children. He was particularly fond of his daughter, who he called his little mouse. Then came the year 1814. Napoleon was defeated and exiled to the island of Elba. Josephine stayed in Paris, living in exile with her stepson, while Napoleon plotted his return to power. But deep down, Josephine knew that her husband would never regain the throne, so she did what any sensible woman would do. She got a lover. Now, you may be asking, how could she do this to Napoleon? Well, the thing is, Napoleon wasn't exactly faithful, remember? Plus, he had left her for another woman, Marie-Louise, the former Empress of Austria. So Josephine wasn't exactly feeling guilty about it. Her new lover was a young man named Hippolyte, Charles de Lalive, and their relationship was purely physical. Josephine was never in love with him, but she enjoyed the company. It gave her a sense of normalcy and happiness that she hadn't felt in years. Unfortunately, Napoleon found out about her little fling, and he wasn't happy about it. When he returned to Paris in 1815, he confronted Josephine about it. She admitted to it and expected him to be angry, but he surprised her by being calm. He said that he knew about her affair and didn't care. It didn't bother him because he was already in love with Marie-Louise. Basically, he was telling her that she could do whatever she wanted because their marriage was over. Detaching from the fact that he was still in love with her, though, that's a story for another day. On May 5th, 1815, Napoleon left Paris for Waterloo, where he would meet his Waterloo. On June, Napoleon was finally defeated and exiled to the remote island of St. Helena in the Atlantic Ocean. He died there 6 years later, on May 5th, 1821. His remains were returned to France in 1840, and he was buried in a tomb beneath the dome of the Invalides Church in Paris. Josephine outlived Napoleon by almost 20 years. She died on May 29th. At the age of 68, she was buried next to Napoleon in the Tomb of the Cord. So there you have it, the love story of Napoleon and Josephine. They say that behind every great man there is a woman rolling her eyes at his antics. But in Napoleon's case, there were two women behind him, one rolling her eyes and the other adoring him. Thank you for watching.